Before TV dinners even existed, a series of innovations set the stage for meals that would someday be enjoyed in front of the television. This story actually begins during World War II, when American entrepreneur William Maxon of Maxon Food Systems discovered a fascinating new approach to food storage. After freezing a batch of cauliflower, Maxon realized it tasted almost as fresh as the day he froze it after reheating. Curious about how far he could push this discovery, he began experimenting with full meals, testing whether frozen meats and vegetables could be preserved and reheated for soldiers. With an eye on feeding military personnel efficiently, Maxon developed the Stratoplate, a meal with separate compartments for meat, vegetables, and potatoes. And although it might not sound like much, this was the first multi-compartment frozen meal and was served on naval air transport flights during World War II. The Stratoplate was revolutionary, to the point that ultimately it was paired with Maxon's Whirlwind, the first widely used convection oven, which could heat several meals simultaneously. Significantly reducing cook times, this innovation laid the groundwork for what we now know as TV dinner. Throughout the latter half of the 20th century, American families gathered around the television to watch scheduled shows like Gunsmoke, I Love Lucy, and Friends, making these moments part of their weekly routine. TV wasn't just entertainment, it became a part of the American spirit, influencing everything, including how we ate. But how exactly did TV dinner fit into this picture of mid-century life? And what sparked its invention in the first place? Stay tuned to find out, as today we discover the origins of TV dinner. I'm your host Ryan Socash, and you're watching Eats History. Although the Stratoplate faded from use after the war, Maxon's idea of convenient, frozen meals set the stage for future advancements in frozen food technology. Other entrepreneurs took note, like Jack Fisher's so-called Frigidinners, which served pre-prepared meals to bars and taverns lacking kitchen space, while Albert and Meyer Bernstein founded Frozen Dinners Incorporated in Pittsburgh, creating three-compartment meals similar to Maxon's Stratoplates. These early attempts paved the way for a cultural and culinary transformation that would take off with the TV tray. By the early 1950s, Americans were already beginning to pair eating with watching TV, but it was still an informal practice, with families balancing plates on their laps or spreading food on coffee tables. The innovation that truly brought TV and dinner together was the TV tray. First advertised in 1952, this simple folding tray allowed families to dine comfortably while watching their favorite shows, changing how and where Americans ate. Dinner no longer had to be in the dining room. It could be wherever the television was. But while the TV tray did make it easier to eat in front of the TV, someone still had to cook the meal. That's where the TV dinner came in, a revolution of convenience for families. Enter Swanson, the company that would popularize the concept and name TV dinner. In the early 1950s, Swanson was faced with an unusual dilemma: a massive surplus of turkey after Thanksgiving. According to the story, Swanson salesman Gary Thomas saw an opportunity to use this surplus and proposed packing pre-cooked turkey with sides of stuffing and sweet potatoes. These meals would be packaged in a tin tray and sold as complete frozen meals. The result? A perfectly convenient meal that could be easily heated at home, freeing mothers from lengthy meal preparation, a solution that they were desperately seeking. You see, it was around this time that women were entering the workforce in increasing numbers, so a quick, ready-to-eat meal fit in seamlessly with this new lifestyle. The TV dinner concept took off, and Swanson sold millions in the first year alone. However, although this is the widely accepted story, there is actually a pretty serious debate as to who actually invented the TV dinner. You see, Swanson's success with this product had a lot of people claiming credit. Some say it was Gary Thomas, whereas others argue that it was Swanson's own founders, Gilbert and Clark Swanson, who deserve the recognition. But one thing is clear: the name and the packaging were a team effort by Swanson's advertising department, and it was their work that embedded TV dinners into American culture. As the 1950s turned into the 1960s, the popularity of TV dinners soared. Swanson continued to refine its offering, adding options like Salisbury steak, fried chicken, and meatloaf. The meals were marketed as family-friendly and convenient, aligning perfectly with the era's shifting family dynamics and rising television culture. At this point, even beyond Swanson, other brands like Banquet Foods, Stoufferts, and Morton also entered the frozen meal market, each offering different meals to meet the growing demand. But then, in the mid-1950s, something astonishing happened. Campbell's Soup Company acquired Swanson, giving the brand a broader reach and the resources, and innovate they did. Swanson added a dessert compartment in the 1960s, creating meals that offered a complete dining experience in one package. Frozen dinners became emblematic of American convenience, reflecting the country's love for television and its desire for efficiency. The meals were not only easy to prepare, but also inexpensive, which meant that they were accessible to a wide range of families, to the point that you might even say it wasn't just about food, it was about lifestyle. Despite its success, the TV dinner was not without critics. As the decades went on, concerns about the nutritional value and high sodium content of frozen meals began to grow. The health-conscious trends of the 1970s and 80s posed challenges for frozen meals as Americans started to demand fresher and healthier options. Swanson responded with its Hungry Man line in 1973, endorsed by athletes like Pittsburgh Steelers' Joe Green, which promised larger portions aimed at those with big appetites. But even with these additions, the health drawbacks were hard to ignore. In the 1980s, Swanson adapted by introducing microwave-safe trays, reducing cooking time and making the meals even more convenient. Yet the rise of health awareness continued to shift customer interest away from the traditional TV dinners. By the 1990s, other food options, such as fresh pre-made meals from grocery stores, were drawing customers away from frozen foods altogether. Meaning, as American taste preferences changed, so did the market for TV dinners, to the point that this product was fading away fast. TV dinner may not be as popular as it once was, but they have certainly left a lasting impact on American culture. The COVID-19 pandemic back in 2020 saw a surprising resurgence in frozen meal sales as people stocked up on essentials during lockdowns. The convenience of frozen food became appealing once more as families navigated new routines and social restrictions. So, while the traditional TV dinner may be in decline, the influence it had on dining habits remains clear. Today, frozen meals are a common staple, even if they're no longer eaten in front of the TV with the same sense of novelty. With changing times, it's uncertain if TV dinner will ever regain its former glory, but its legacy in American food history is certainly undeniable. But when it comes to American food history, there is one idea that I find very deniable: pizza as a vegetable. Yes, legally there was a time when pizza was considered a vegetable in the US, and you can learn more about that topic by clicking on this video right here. Otherwise, I hope that you will subscribe to our special limited series, Eats History. Until next time, this is Ryan Socash, signing off.